Okay, so yesterday we talked about the idea of building landscapes by just a simple representation of land and sky. Today we're going to do something that I call fancy sky, because sometimes blue, right? It has other colors in it. Sometimes that's because it's stormy, and sometimes that's because it's, around sunrise or sunset. And you'll see for these smaller landscapes, because the paper is small, I do partially tape them down to this is just a scrap of cardboard, mat board. The little paper sometimes can curl quite. So I'm going to do one super stormy sky, and I'm going to do one like sunrise or sunset kind of sky, so that the sky is yellow and pink and orange along with the blue. Now the thing you want to remember is that orange and blue together make gray. So the like sunsetty or sunrise kind of sky, we have to let that set up a little before we can fully paint that. I'm gonna have a little bit more intense blue before, just because I want that a feeling of, that it's maybe not yet fully dawn. And I'm gonna paint my, I'm just not gonna paint it all over. Effect of clouds and then morning, like sun and color in the sky, and the orange in here right away, we're going to make just a terrible mess, because it'll make. The thing that I can do a little bit while the sky is wet is I can come back and I can add just a tiny bit of a purple that I've mixed up into this blue, especially being I've got such a dark color blue right now, so I can get some purple here at the edge. The little bit of the pinky red can come in here as well. I don't, without needing to put any orange in here. Maybe we can get the idea of like this kind of sunset sort of feel without there needing to be any of the orangey. So here I just switched to that yellow. Not the bright lemony yellow, but the other yellow, the yellow that's got the little bit more golden color to it. Leave this guy like this, or I can, I certainly could lift out clouds if I like. Either way, completely works. One thing that you want to think about is when my sky is all of these, is that my ground is also some of those great colors, right? The sky and the ground, the sky gives us the light and to see by. So if my sky has all these great, like it's going to be sunset, my ground is going to follow suit. It's going to feel similar in terms of color and tone. So I want to do some purple down here, and because I finished with yellow, I'm going to give this one a little bit of a break so that it can dry before I add the idea of ground, because if the sky was this color, the grass would not be brilliantly green. The grass, like I said, is going to look blue and purple. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this guy for a couple of minutes. I might decide to put a couple clouds in here after all. Just a hint of a couple of clouds. Kind of painted it like it had clouds, but then there weren't clouds, so. Add just a little bit of pink here at the bottom of my couple of clouds that I got in there. Dab off the top edge so then they're not quite so brilliant, but I want just that feeling that those last rays of the sun are hitting those clouds. So that would be fancy sky, like I said, like dawn, kind of either early or late, just before sunset. Okay. All right, now I'm gonna do cloudy. All right, so if it's cloudy, if it's gonna storm, the sky is usually pretty dark, kind of gray, little ominous feeling. So I'm going to mix up using my phthalo blue and my light cadmium red. Now that's the orange looking red instead of the pink looking red. And that makes a really dark, like blackish kind of blue gray really quickly. I'm gonna grab some water, and you can see now I have a slightly like we're in trouble in terms of the weather. I'm gonna back up towards the horizon line with just a little bit of water. And this kind of stormy sky is going to take a couple of goes because I'm going to pull out some clouds, and those are going to be really white and like fluffy looking. And I'm not going to want those super white fluffy clouds. So I'm going to have to come back and paint in, you know, just a few like ominous looking shadows at the bottom part of my clouds so that I get this distinct feeling of them and the, you know, the superstorm that's on the horizon. So I'm going to think about having quite a few clouds. Like this kind of sky is pretty cloudy, pretty dark, pretty ominous looking. I'm going to come back here to that dark blue gray that I made and find some of the grayer. And I'm just going to come in now with a little bit more of this darker color. And I'm going to add that in at the bottom of these clouds just so they feel, one, that gives them some physical structure, because clouds, you know, they have depth. They're actually a thing up there in the sky. So this gives me that feeling of their shadow. And it also like kind of increases the drama, right? Landscapes involve partially the sky, so we want to make sure that we're thinking sometimes about how we can change the sky and how that changes the scape that we're making. And I'm gonna re-lift some clouds, so some of that got I'm just gonna move it around a little bit with my paper towel, sort of adjusting where that cloud cover sits, adjusting kind of some of the gloom factor, lightening up some of that. But you can see that where I've done that, it's just this is where I've just painted on, this is where I've lightened it up. I just want those hard dark shapes to be out of my sky, so I'm kind of rubbing at those, dabbing at those just a little bit here with my paper towel, just to kind of soften that a little bit. So there you go. We have a distinctly stormy looking sky. If my sky is dark like this, my ground is all to be dark. Remember we talked about the sky and the ground with one another. If my sky is this dark, my landscape will be this dark. The sky is where the light comes from. It's going to drive my landscape colors a little bit. Once this dries, I can show you how to add kind of the feeling of a low trees to this landscape. But you can see I grabbed a little bit darker gray, and we'll really set that sky off. And lighter gray or blue at the top, gradually getting darker as we move to the front, same as before. But you'll see no green really to speak of. We don't want to see any green in this sort of landscape. We can't see green when the sky looks like that. It's going to look pretty gloomy on that day. All right, so by now my landscape up top should be pretty well set up, and I can put some grayish. You see a little bit of green in this landscape, not a lot. Put a little bit of grayish green down here. A little bit of brighter yellow in a couple of the places. And then interesting, we can, at the very back of a landscape like this, and you'll see that kind of sets off, so I'm just sort of wiggling my paintbrush back here to give me the back landscape back here. Maybe has a few trees and at least part of it. If I feel like those have gotten too dark, I certainly can come back either with my paintbrush, clean some of the paint and the water out of there, and I can kind of lighten a few areas if I want. But you can see that that sort of sets off that sky if we have a few, just sort of the idea that there are some trees at the horizon back there, and they are getting caught in that late sun. And they are turning kind of purple. I can do the exact same thing down here with my stormy landscape, and again kind of set off that sky with a dramatically lit sort of row of trees at the back to get my like super dark gray here, or kind of it's like gray blue, and I can do the exact wobble brushing back here. Added a little more orange. And that kind of dark background will really set off this kind of stormy feeling sky, just because we have that strong contrast then between, the back juxtaposed against that cloud. So there you go, instead of just a plain sky.